Part 36. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 352. One sword breaks the sky, one sword shakes the mountains. When Chu Qingyu and Nai Chen's sword intents gathered together, the momentum had changed drastically. The sky of the underworld originally showed a dark khaki color in this depressing atmosphere, and there was no sunlight in the sky. It seemed extremely depressing and chilling. But at this moment, when a mighty sword intent spread to all directions, even the sky seemed to have changed. A faint green light infected half of the sky, which seemed to be condensed by Chu Qingyu's sword intent. This sword intent was extremely majestic, and the light green light not only illuminated half of the sky, but also spread a solemn and indifferent atmosphere to the surroundings. Outside the city gate of the Netherworld dynasty, the sky was still a depressing khaki color. Although the khaki sky was not cloudy at all, it made a rumbling sound, as if thunder was surging in it. The faintly floating might even made the army of souls below, which were polluted and completely engulfed by the blood, feel fear and look up in astonishment. Not only them. At this moment, the millions of ghost soldiers of the Netherworld dynasty also felt the awe from the depths of their souls. There are many extremely powerful ghosts in the underworld, but obviously, they are also completely shocked by this terrible power. Strange, what happened? At this moment, Yu Qian, who had just experienced a round-robin battle and lost a lot of physical strength, was already a little weak and breathed a little fast, raising her head in surprise. The Netherworld dynasty was in danger, and she had even planned to let the ghost soldiers of the Central Force leave, and had given up her hope of continuing to live. But this sudden change completely broke Yu Qian's expectations. Such a strong sword intent, let alone in the underworld, even when she was wandering in Lanchuan continent, she had never seen it. Roar. I don't know whether it was fear or to vent anger. Those bloody souls roared even more furiously, rushing towards the city gate of the Netherworld dynasty. In front of millions of ghost soldiers, the crown exuded a dark blue light, but Yu Qian did not draw her sword, but slowly looked up at the sky. But soon, her eyes could not help but change suddenly. In the majestic sword energy that was constantly gathering sword intent and was like a hurricane, she actually saw a figure that she had been looking forward to for a long time but could not see. The light blue phoenix skirt fluttered in the air, and the clothes and rings rang in the sword energy. Cold, arrogant, awe-inspiring, but flawless and beautiful like a beautiful jade. Obviously, there was a huge difference from her memory, but Yu Qian recognized it at a glance. Qingyu. In her low murmur, it seemed that there was infinite nostalgia. The crown was worn on her delicate head, and Yu Qian's eyes gradually softened. I didn't expect that you've grown so big after such a long time apart. In Yu Qian's memory, Chu Qingyu's figure seemed to still remain in the image of a pitiful little girl hiding in her arms and crying. But 100 years have passed, and now Chu Qingyu has the awe-inspiring imperial power, cold and indifferent, as if no one dares to approach easily. And beside her, Yu Qian shifted her gaze and finally saw the source of the majestic sword intent. It's him. Yu Qian suddenly recalled that a few months ago, she had cut through space with a sword in Lanchuan continent and killed a person in the underworld. Although Nai Chen had not yet reached the realm of the great emperor, the strength of the previous sword still completely shocked her. It was after that sword that Yu Qian, who was in charge of the soul's communication with the past and the future and could see part of the fate line, discovered that Nai Chen and herself had also formed a fate. But in addition to the fate of that sword, she and this person seemed to have other causal connections. Strange, except for Qingyu, I have no other connection with other people in Lanchuan continent. What is going on? Yu Qian looked up at the sky in confusion, and soon, she saw a scene that made her stunned. At this moment, a continuous stream of sword intent condensed on the Nirvana Phoenix sword in her hand. The Nirvana Phoenix sword, which was repaired by the remnants of the heavenly rank, burned with raging flames, and the degree of this flame was much hotter than before. The extremely hot temperature even made the sword body produce an illusion like a divine phoenix bathing in fire. This Nirvana phoenix sword, which had no sword spirit, seemed to have an inexplicable excitement, as if it was delighted by this mysterious and incomparable perseverance. Being able to cut a powerful enough sword is also the lifelong desire of a heavenly rank sword. Like this sword intent, the Nirvana Phoenix sword also exudes the power hidden in the deepest part. Even if the sword has not been cut down, the hot and scorching breath has already risen. Bathed in flames, it was enough to show how terrible the power was. As expected of my wife, you have a deep understanding of the sword. The sword intent in this sword is really powerful. Looking at the strange phenomenon displayed by the Nirvana Phoenix sword, even Nai-Chen couldn't help but exclaimed. Humph, of course, this bamboo sword of the Emperor was made by the fairy of the fairyland. Over the years, the Emperor has some understanding of the sword. As a powerful Emperor, Chu Qingyu has heard countless flattery. There are flattering rumors, and there are also those from the heart. But she has never really taken it to heart. In her cold and arrogant state, those flattery are just like wind in her ears. But for some reason, Nai-Chen's simple compliment made her smile slightly, and her heart was quite happy. Hee, it's just swordsmanship. When has this emperor ever lost to others except in cooking? Chu Qingyu said with a little smugness. Well, my wife, you are a little self-aware of your cooking. Nai-Chen thought for a moment, but suddenly thought of something other than cooking. Suddenly he smiled subtly and leaned close to Chu Qingyu's ear. There was a time when my wife could never beat me. Oh? What? Chu Qingyu couldn't help but be curious, but obviously she didn't think of it for a while. When I took the 9-yang chaos pill. As Nai-Chen spoke, Chu Qingyu's cheeks instantly changed from slightly proud to calm, and then quickly turned to blushing. How is it possible, even if you take the 9-yang chaos pill, this emperor will? Ahem, my wife, you may have forgotten how you begged for mercy in the last hour at the Holy See. Me. Damn it, don't talk about these topics that are not suitable for children in this kind of occasion. Looking at the bloody battle below, Chu Qingyu made a sound of shame and anger, and her erratic eyes did not dare to look at Nai-Chen at all. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 353. What is this? Looking at the scene in the sky, Yu Qian couldn't help but be slightly absent-minded for a moment. Because in her impression, Chu Qingyu seemed to stay in the appearance of the little girl who had just changed from crying every day to practicing seriously. And now, the sweet and resentful conversations and actions between Nai-Chen and Chu Qingyu seemed to be able to sweeten people's hearts. Yu Qian realized that Chu Qingyu was no longer the pitiful child. Not only did she become a powerful emperor, but she also had an enviable love. Really, such a sweet love, not afraid of making people jealous. Yu Qian couldn't help but murmur, but there was a slight smile on the corner of her mouth. In that smile, there was clearly a heartfelt relief. After leaving Lanchuan continent, she was also worried that Chu Qingyu, who was overly eager to become stronger, would one day enter the realm of the emperor, but be so cold and arrogant that no one could approach her. But now, this worry has been completely dispelled. Because in the sweet behavior of the two, Yu Qian has been completely relieved. She knew very well that the feeling was so sincere that it seemed to have no flaws. Holding the sword in her hand, Yu Qian, whose spiritual energy had been somewhat exhausted, seemed to have rekindled her strength in an instant. She looked at the countless blood-colored souls surging over. Although she was petite, there was no fear in her eyes. The crown on her head emitted a faint blue light, which came from the suppression of ghosts by the royal family of the underworld. Today, no matter what, she will stay here and will never retreat. Roar. Whether they felt the danger of the sword or Yu Qian's contempt, those blood-colored souls seemed to be more furious than before. A more gloomy ghost aura spread, and those blood-colored souls suddenly increased their speed and began to rush towards the Netherworld dynasty. The Netherworld dynasty's ghost soldiers originally numbered 1,000,000, majestic and majestic. But in this battle that has lasted for nearly a month, a large number of ghost soldiers were killed, and many were infected by blood, and even followed those souls to attack the Netherworld dynasty. Seeing their former comrades fall or become enemies, and being forced to retreat step by step. Even those ghost soldiers who had originally made up their minds to be loyal to the princess felt deeply powerless. With their strength, they could no longer save the situation. At this moment, even the princess who rushed into the siege alone could not be protected. If this continues, the crown on Yu Qian's head exudes the oppression of the royal family of the underworld, but the ghost soldiers know very well that even the princess's spiritual power is becoming increasingly exhausted. I'm afraid it won't be long before this last line of defense will be completely defeated. The Netherworld dynasty, which has stood in the underworld for countless tens of thousands of years and once controlled countless souls to pass through the rebirth, is likely to be completely destroyed today. The mood of despair and pessimism spread, and no matter how unwilling they were to believe it, the ghost soldiers could no longer save the situation that was constantly collapsing. They knew very well that the ending was difficult to change. But at this moment, even Yu Qian's power was weakening, and she felt completely powerless to fight, falling into deep helplessness and self-blame. The sword intent that had been brewing in the sky finally broke out at this moment. Boom! It was like a thunder in early spring, which could revive all things. A roaring sound almost caused the entire land within 1,000 miles of the Netherworld dynasty to tremble. More importantly, the sharp and murderous sword intent, whether it was a living being or a ghost, would feel the fear trembling from the deepest. At this moment, Nai Chen's eyes were already looking at the ground. There was a holy golden light in his eyes. Nai Chen had no sword in his hand, but the endless sword intent condensed into the shape of a sword. This sword, which was only made of hurricane, exuded a spirit that was far superior to ordinary heavenly magic weapons. Kai Tai Sword. In this sword, Nai Chen and Chu Qingyu's understanding of the sword was condensed at the same time. And the sword will be infinitely expanded and gathered in the strongest attack. The power of this sword will be enough to exceed the imagination of any existence. Even the great emperor will be far behind. The wind swept, and the sky changed drastically. Two rays of light green and gold were reflected on the invisible sword in Nai Chen's hand at the same time. There were bursts of wonderful fragrance in the air, as if it came from the eternal mystery. Even the soul without 5 senses can sense this breath, and even seem to feel that the surrounding space is trembling and twisting under the pressure, emitting extremely hot temperatures. The power of the Emperor? No, this is a far more terrifying attack than the Great Emperor. Is this the Kai Tai sword? The sword in his hand became more and more majestic and terrifying, and even Nai Chen felt a little difficult to control. The ancient method rewarded by the system is indeed mysterious, but it can bring out the power of this sword to such an extent. In addition to her own sword intent, the strength of the Empress's sword intent is even more unimaginable. The repaired Nirvana Phoenix sword has become a heavenly magic weapon, but its sense of oppression is still far less than the ink-stained bamboo sword in Chu Qingyu's hand. It seems that not only the Empress has a transcendent comprehension ability, but the bamboo sword in her hand also has unimaginable mystery. However, the study of the bamboo sword should be put aside for later. At this moment, the sword intent is sufficient, and it is time to cut this sword. A sharp look flashed across Nai Chen's eyes. He no longer hesitated, and the sword intent formed by 2 rays of light in his hand faced the vast land. From top to bottom, he slashed down with an extremely decisive sword. Above was the dim and vast sky, and below was the endless vast land. But this sword seemed to be able to cut through the sky and destroy all obstacles. Anyone who blocked it, die. The word sword has spanned through the ages. Since ancient times, countless cultivators have been eager to pursue its ultimate. But at this moment, Thousands of sword intents seemed to be condensed on this sword. The long galaxy that spanned the sword path flowed slowly, and the end point of convergence was right here. The wind was blowing, and the sword energy was awe-inspiring. Wherever the solemn and ancient sword energy swept, everything would be cut and shattered. At this moment, even the soul controlled by the blood color looked up at the sky in astonishment, filled with inexplicable fear. But it was too late to escape. The sword energy, which was condensed with light blue and golden light, slashed down majestically. Wherever it passed, the space shattered and the sky was broken. The huge sky seemed to be torn apart by it. Like the roar of a dragon, like the roar of a beast. The voice of endless majesty echoed in this vast sky. And this sword also slashed down majestically. Boom! The earth broke and the rocks shattered. The underworld shook, and the mountains and rivers roared. The army of millions of souls that filled the earth and fought were torn into a crack by this sword. In an instant, countless souls were instantly scattered, and they were completely gone. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 354. At this moment, the atmosphere seemed to become dead silent. On the huge battlefield outside the Netherworld dynasty, the soul army that was originally polluted by blood and surging was almost instantly destroyed by this sword. On the lowest land, a crack that stretched for more than 10 miles was left. It was like a deep canyon, which made people feel cold in their hearts. It was impossible to imagine that this huge crack could be torn by a sword. Countless blood-colored souls disappeared in this sword, and even the army of the Netherworld dynasty was obviously stunned, and they did not expect this sudden situation at all. But soon, they reacted. Who can do this? Looking at the two figures floating in the sky in astonishment, countless ghost soldiers were instantly excited. I thought the overall situation was over, let alone the dynasty, even the princess might not be able to protect it. But this sword completely reversed the situation. The opportunity cannot be missed. The already somewhat dejected ghost soldiers knew very well that this was their chance, and the only chance. Kill! A loud shout echoed in the air. This voice seemed to ignite the anger of everyone. For a whole month, the land of the Netherworld dynasty fell one after another, and countless ghost soldiers were scattered or infected and became enemies. Even the safety of the princess was almost lost. At this moment, the situation was finally reversed. No matter what, the other party must pay the price. Kill! The Netherworld dynasty will last forever. Kill! The sound of killing was everywhere, and the already exhausted ghost soldiers seemed to rekindle their anger in an instant. The flames of war flew again, and the deep ravine cut by the sword still lay in the center of the battlefield. At this moment, the situation has completely changed. In an instant, nearly 80% of the ghosts were annihilated by the sword, and the ghost soldiers who were originally at a disadvantage instantly took control. The Netherworld dynasty launched a counterattack and attacked fiercely. Although there were still many casualties, the war that lasted for a whole month was finally coming to an end. King Yu. On the ground, Yukin also raised her head gently and looked at Chu Qingyu in the sky. In her eyes, there seemed to be some deep nostalgia. Sister Ming. Even though countless ghost soldiers surged across the ground like waves, Chu Qingyu saw the familiar figure that she missed so much at a glance. And, she happened to look into the eyes of Yukin. Time seemed to have returned to many years ago. As long as she saw Yukin's figure, she would fly over excitedly, showing the most innocent smile. But at this moment, Chu Qingyu's cherry lips trembled slightly, her eyes moved, but she still stayed where she was. Because 100 years had passed. She was no longer the little girl who wiped her tears all day long, but had become a powerful emperor. The reason why Chu Qingyu could be in charge of Tianyuan Palace and command the 12 Xingluo palaces to conquer a large area of territory was because of her decisive and cold and arrogant character. Except for Nai Chen, Chu Qingyu always maintained her intimidating coldness and arrogance when facing anyone since she became an emperor. So even though she felt as comfortable as the sun shining when she saw Yukin again, she felt that she could no longer throw herself into Sister Ming's warm arms with great joy as before. Her eyes changed slightly, but Chu Qingyu was obviously hesitant. She didn't take the next step for a long time, as if she was stunned. "Wife, what's wrong with you?" Nai Chen also noticed the strange changes in Chu Qingyu and looked at her curiously. But soon, from Chu Qingyu's eager, hesitant, and expectant eyes, Nai Chen saw the general reason. Obviously, the empress, whose status, position, and strength have undergone earth-shaking changes, can no longer run over as innocently as before. In this world, there are always some insurmountable factors that will limit people's emotions. But Nai Chen's mouth corners slightly raised, and he instantly thought of an excellent solution. The Empress has been as cold and majestic as ever for hundreds of years, making it impossible for her to make innocent and intimate behaviors like a little girl. In this case, Nai Chen's figure flashed and suddenly appeared beside Chu Qingyu. And with lightning speed, he reached out to the snow lotus in Chu Qingyu's hair. At this moment, Chu Qingyu, who was still in a complex hesitation, obviously had not recovered. Although she noticed Nai Chen's sudden action, it was too late to resist. What are you going to do?" Even if she tried to dodge, Chu Qingyu was still a little slow. Just by catching this moment, Nai Chen touched the snow lotus and gently pulled it away from Chu Qingyu's hair. The faint light from the snow lotus disappeared, and a burst of light covered Chu Qingyu's delicate body. It was visible to the naked eye that her body was gradually getting smaller. "What on earth happened?" Chu Qingyu's surprised voice came out. Obviously she had not expected this situation at all. She hurriedly tried to circulate her spiritual energy to maintain her body, as if she wanted to stop her body from getting smaller. But without the snow lotus, the invisible power from the underworld enveloped her. Even Chu Qingyu could not stop the changes in her body. She could only helplessly watch herself getting smaller and smaller. There was no way to stop it. Finally, after the light faded, the light blue phoenix skirt turned into a smaller version of children's clothing, and Chu Qingyu turned into a little girl who was not even as tall as Nai Chen's waist. Her petite body and face were as delicate as a doll, but her beautiful eyes were full of pity. "Damn it, Nai Chen, you actually took away my snow lotus." Chu Qingyu was so anxious that she jumped up and down. She never thought that after finally recovering her body, Nai Chen would take away the snow lotus again. The most important thing was that she was not even as tall as Nai Chen's waist. She jumped around but could not grab the snow lotus that was taken away. If there was not a trace of spiritual energy left, she would not even be able to float in the air. "Wife, do you want it?" However, Nai Chen smiled and swung the snow lotus in front of her. I want it." This petite body now has no dignity as an emperor at all. Chu Qingyu had no choice but to bear the humiliation and temporarily hide the idea of dealing with Nai Chen, and nodded obediently. "I won't give it to you even if you want it." However, Nai Chen, who had already seen through this clumsy acting, laughed wildly. Instead, he quickly took away the snow lotus that was about to reach Chu Qingyu. "Damn it!" In the sky, a voice of shame and anger instantly echoed. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 355. The majestic emperor, at this moment, could only act like an ordinary little girl, unable to fight back. No, it should be said that apart from being able to barely control the wind and fly in mid-air, she is no different from an ordinary little girl. Chu Qingyu flew around with her remaining spiritual power, but she couldn't snatch the snow lotus from Nai Chen's hand. Moreover, no matter how cute she was trying to look at Nai Chen with pitiful eyes, or trying to snatch it away with a cute and threatening expression, it's all useless. Nai Chen, who had snatched the snow lotus away, seemed to have already made up his mind to never give it back. He even took the opportunity to pinch Chu Qingyu's soft face. After all, there is no chance to pinch Empress Qingyu's face and bully her hard, except in the underworld. I didn't expect that, my wife. Your face was so soft when you were a child, and it seems to feel even better when you pinch it. Looking at the beautiful cheeks that were slightly chubby with a touch of natural blush, Nai Chen smiled meaningfully. At this moment, Chu Qingyu suddenly felt a look of relief and a hint of smile from the ground. It seems that even Sister Ming has noticed her embarrassment of shrinking. Originally, I wanted to show off to Sister Ming, who had been away for a long time, that I was now a powerful emperor. But now, my face has been completely lost. Damn Nai Chen, I will bite you. Chu Qingyu's beautiful gem-like eyes were filled with tears, and she flew towards Nai Chen, biting his shoulders with two small tiger teeth. Okay, so hard. But soon, she felt a slight pain in her teeth. You can actually use the indestructible boy body. My teeth hurt slightly and felt numb. Chu Qingyu never thought that Nai Chen could actually know this kind of skill. The indestructible boy's body has great limitations, although the monk who is a boy can exert extremely good strength. But once the precepts are broken, this technique will be greatly reduced and almost completely useless. It can be said that with Nai Chen's strength, even if the current Vajra indestructible boy's body defense ability is greatly reduced, it is not something that an ordinary little girl without spiritual power can bite and move. It's impossible to bite me. Wife, you'd better give up. Nai Chen, who had already anticipated this scene, couldn't help but smile. The two tiger teeth felt soft for a while, as if they were about to fall off. Chu Qingyu stared at Nai Chen resentfully, still unwilling to give up. Woo-hoo-hoo, I don't believe it. Overcoming the fear in her heart, Chu Qingyu stubbornly bit Nai Chen's chest. Ugh, it hurts. But Nai Chen's chest was still as solid as a rock, and he couldn't bite it at all. Chu Qingyu couldn't help but screamed in pain, and her petite body trembled slightly. Nai Chen couldn't help but be amused. Unexpectedly, the Empress's stubbornness increased instead of decreasing as she became smaller, and she refused to admit defeat no matter what. However, this indestructible boy's body, with the two little tiger teeth of the current Empress, I am afraid that no matter what, I won't be able to bite it. But to Nai Chen's expectation, Chu Qingyu still didn't give up and continued to bite down. The part below the shoulder that cannot be bitten is the chest, and the part below the chest that cannot be bitten is near the navel. I can't even bite my belly button. Those two pointed tiger teeth are actually aimed further down. Honey, calm down. Looking at Chu Qingyu's gaze, Nai Chen instantly realized something was wrong. With the blessing of the indestructible virgin body, there is no need to worry about the queen's tiger teeth actually being able to bite, but if it does bite, in the queen's current form, that's simply a crime. Nai Chen quickly moved away, not daring to let Chu Qingyu continue to bite. It's strange. You weren't scared at all just now. Why did you suddenly not let me bite you? Chu Qingyu, who was suddenly stunned, was obviously slightly stunned. After all, Nai Chen seemed completely indifferent to the bite he had just made. Only this time, he panic, he's panic. Therefore, this must be his weakness. Chu Qingyu's watery eyes suddenly flashed with excitement. I heard that the weakness of the indestructible boy's body is some weird place, but I didn't expect that I actually guessed it right. Humph, don't even think about escaping. Now that I have discovered your weakness, even if you obediently return the snow lotus to me today, I will never let you go. Chu Qingyu opened her small mouth, and her two pointed tiger teeth seemed to be completely locked on Nai Chen. There was a sense of excitement about the impending victory in her expression. Holy shit, honey, calm down, this is not a problem with the Vajra boy body. Nai-Chen was dumbfounded. He never thought that the Empress, who was obviously very smart, would be so stupid after she turned into a child. More importantly, whether he can break the King Kong boy god is not the main problem. What if he is bitten by the Empress in this form? That's really too much punishment. My reputation will be drowned in scoldings for the rest of my life. Hey, don't try to deceive me, you are obviously panicking. So I understand, this is your real weakness. However, noticing Nai-Chen's resistant look, Chu Qingyu seemed to have discovered a new world. With a hint of pride, he rushed towards Nai-Chen even more excitedly. Give me a bite, just one bite. Don't even think about escaping, let's see how easily I can break your indestructible boy body. Haha, are you scared? But it's too late to be scared, just wait for me to bite you. Awoo. The babyish voice echoed in the air. Although this voice sounds innocent, it even makes people feel that it is a rare, pure and beautiful sound in the world. Looking at the scene in front of them, all the ghost soldiers opened their mouths in astonishment. My God, that little girl looks so pure and flawless, how can she know so much? This is too wild. I remember that before I died, a little girl of this age didn't know anything at all. Have I changed so much in just a few hundred years of my death? Alas, the world has changed, and people's hearts have changed. So wild. Even these ghost soldiers who have been dead for who knows how many years, watching Chu Qingyu's actions when chasing Nai-Chen and her eyes looking down at Nai-Chen, couldn't help but feel a flushed face, and felt that their worldview had been strongly impacted. For a moment, countless eyes stared at the sky in astonishment, but all of them were dazed in place, some of them didn't know what to say. Hey, look at how this emperor. Hey, why do I feel something is wrong? At this moment, Chu Qingyu, who was chasing Nai-Chen with great enthusiasm, suddenly noticed that many ghost soldiers below seemed to be looking at her. And the look in their eyes was obviously very strange. I didn't do anything, what on earth? Chu Qingyu shook her little head, a little confused, thinking about the possible cause and effect. But suddenly, recalling the dirty pictures she had seen in the little notebook before, she suddenly realized that her behavior, why did it attract so much attention? Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 356. UN, it turns out it's because of this. Chu Qingyu suddenly thought of the reason and was stunned on the spot. No wonder they looked at him like that, no wonder Nai-Chen ran away with a weird smile. Nonsense, if you want to bite that spot, will it cause such a reaction? What were you thinking about just now? Only then did Chu Qingyu realize that she seemed to have been affected by the shrinkage of her body. Her mind was always confused when thinking about things, and she was so naive that she retreated for hundreds of years. What happened just now is enough to make anyone who saw it think wildly. If word really spreads, her reputation as the Empress will be completely tarnished. Her pretty little face turned red instantly, with tears in her eyes. The look she looked at Nai-Chen was so pitiful that she almost cried. Nai-Chen. The sound of breast milk echoed in the air with a heart-wrenching sound. Honey, look down there. But unlike Chu Qingyu's imagination, Nai-Chen did not show a triumphant attitude. Instead, there was a hint of tenderness in his smile, and he pointed downwards. The snow lotus stood still in his hand. Although what happened just now was a bit unexpected, the reason why Nai-Chen took off the snow lotus on Chu Qingyu's head was because he noticed the strange relationship between her and Princess Netherworld. Even after ascending to the position of emperor, Chu Qingyu has always regarded Yuqian as someone whom she cherishes very much and wants to repay. From time to time, she will look at the portrait hanging on the wall and feel slightly absent-minded, full of nostalgia for her old friend. But after waiting for so long, I finally arrived in the underworld. Due to his status as an emperor and the cold majesty he had displayed over the years, Chu Qingyu was unable to face this long-awaited reunion with joy as she had imagined before. Nai Chen has already discovered this, and he also knows very well that it is not easy to solve the strange feeling caused by the identity gap that spans 100 years. Therefore, he simply chose to go all out and took off the snow lotus on Chu Qingyu's head, making her look like she was when she was a child again. At this moment, Yukin was also looking up at the sky. Especially when he saw Chu Qingyu, who was so petite and delicate and so cute that she was about to burst into tears after being bullied, she couldn't help but smile with relief. That familiar feeling has returned again. For a moment, Yu Jian seemed to recall the petite body that threw herself into her arms and acted coquettishly many years ago. There was a hint of comfort and warmth in his eyes, as if he were looking at his grown-up sister. "No, you can't cry. I'm the great emperor. I can't be so embarrassed." Parting and reunion. Having just been cruelly bullied by Nai Chen, now I saw Yu Jian's warm smile again. Chu Qingyu's nose twitched pitifully and slightly, trying to stop the tears that were about to flow out, whether they were moved or wronged. It's a pity that even though she repeatedly reminded herself to maintain her dignity as an empress, but that pitiful feeling could no longer be suppressed. Sister Yukin. With tears in her eyes, Chu Qingyu completely threw all her thoughts behind her. No longer worrying about anything, he flew straight towards the ground. Whoosh! The petite body flew very fast, quickly landed on the ground, and flew towards the familiar figure without hesitation. And finally, he fell into King Liang's arms. Yukin's spiritual body is not physical, but the soft and cool feeling of her soul is particularly comfortable. Chu Qingyu's petite body nestled in that embrace, feeling a sense of security that she had not experienced for a long time. The reunion after a long absence was combined with the pitiful emotions after being bullied by Nai Chen. Her little face was nestled in Yu Jian's belly, and Chu Qingyu's petite body trembled slightly. Even the few upturned hairs trembled slightly with the body, looking rather pitiful and cute. "Sister Ming, long time no see. I have actually missed you for many years." With a slight tremor in her voice, accompanied by a bit of milkiness, Chu Qingyu finally sobbed and expressed the feelings that had been buried in her heart for a long time. The hazy tears could no longer be controlled, and the crystal teardrops fell down one after another, and a whimpering sound came out. "Well, I haven't seen you for such a long time. I didn't expect you to be, you are still the same." There was a bit of tenderness in Yukin's eyes, but soon she couldn't help but burst into laughter. When Chu Qingyu first arrived here, the cold and arrogant feeling made her a little unfamiliar, and she was a little afraid to treat this little girl who was cold on the outside and hot on the inside like before, but in fact she was softer than anyone else in her heart. But now, Chu Qingyu seemed to have completely returned to the beginning in an instant. In addition to feeling the nostalgic feeling, Yu Jian couldn't help but smile. He held Chu Qingyu's petite body in his arms with warmth in his heart, and allowed the empress, who had become a powerful emperor in Lanchuan continent and dominated the world, to cry softly and pitifully in his arms. Whoa! Chu Qingyu in her arms would make cute milky sounds from time to time, which made the surrounding Yin soldiers tremble in their hearts. Except that the voice revealed a pitiful feeling. It is indeed, too cute. Is this still the powerful emperor just now? For a moment, countless Yin soldiers recalled the cold and oppressive feeling brought by Chu Qingyu when she first arrived over the Netherworld dynasty. Looking at her cute and soft image of crying in the princess's arms, it was hard for the ghost to imagine that such a big contrast could be the same person. Even Yu Jian couldn't help laughing. Indeed, the contrast between before and after was too big. "Qingyu, do you want to try the sticking that you haven't seen for a long time?" Yu Jian leaned down and whispered in Chu Qingyu's ear. "Sticking?" Hearing this, Chu Qingyu's eyes paused slightly. The meaning of this word is only known between herself and Yujian. Until now, she still can't forget what she liked to do most when she was sad when she was a child. But there are a little too many ghosts here, isn't it a bit embarrassing? Even though she has become a little girl at this moment, Chu Qingyu still seems a little embarrassed. What's the matter? There is no one here. Besides, don't you want to? Yujian smiled slightly and leaned down slowly. This sentence soon made Chu Qingyu's face slightly red. Even though there was a slight hesitation, it was completely forgotten in a short while. Yes. As if she had made a great decision, Chu Qingyu finally showed a serious look on her face and nodded. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 357. When Yujian gently lifted her hair, a trace of inexplicable expectation could not help but appear on Chu Qingyu's obedient cheeks. Time seems to go back to my childhood in an instant. She still remembered that at that time she often felt aggrieved because of the bullying and the hard work of practicing. My parents have long since disappeared, and no one's relatives or friends are around. But at that time, every sticking with Sister Ming could soothe the emotions in my heart. Yukin slowly approached, and finally, her cool forehead touched her. Slightly cool, slightly soft. What's more important is that at this moment, everything seems to have calmed down. There is no confusion or any complicated emotions. Sister Ming. Chu Qingyu couldn't help but close her eyes lightly, enjoying this short but precious tranquility. After hundreds of years, we finally meet again. Slowly separating, she just opened her eyes when she saw Nai Chen suddenly appearing in front of her from nowhere. Honey, do you want to stick with me? Nai Chen said with a smile. Tai Tai. How can such a thing happen with you? At that moment, Chu Qingyu forgot to observe her surroundings, and then she realized that her stickers were not only seen by countless Yin soldiers. More importantly, Nai Chen could see it clearly. Although it is indeed very comfortable to stick to Sister Ming whom I haven't seen for a long time, it is a bit too shameful to think about this kind of thing. After all, he has become the emperor and is no longer the child he used to be. It is absolutely impossible to post anything with others. Even Nai Chen, absolutely can't do it. Damn it, if you hadn't made me smaller. Chu Qingyu stared at Nai Chen with tears in her eyes, slightly ashamed and angry, as if she wanted to blame him. But just in the middle of her words suddenly stopped. Nai Chen had long said that he would pick off the big snowdrops on his head, but he never really took action. Along the way, Nai Chen clearly had many opportunities to pick snow lotus flowers, but he never actually did it. But only when he got here, when he saw Yujian, Nai Chen suddenly picked off the snow lotus. Although it was a huge loss of face to turn back into a little girl, it was also because of this that the somewhat unfamiliar relationship between me and Sister Ming returned to the past after not seeing each other for many years. So, could it be? Looking at Nai Chen's smile that seemed to be hiding something, Chu Qingyu seemed to understand something instantly. The reason why Nai Chen suddenly picked off the snow lotus was because he discovered the slightly strange relationship between himself and Yujian just now, and tried to make up for the unfamiliarity that had not happened in 100 years by taking himself back to his childhood. Indeed, if it hadn't changed into what it was like when I was a child. Even when facing Sister Ming, in the form of a great emperor, it is difficult for him to run over as joyfully as before. For a moment, Chu Qingyu's eyes changed slightly, and her eyes that were already filled with tears became a little more sparkling. Snort. Her nose was slightly sore, but Chu Qingyu still snorted coldly and proudly. After hesitating for a moment, he looked at Nai Chen, and his voice became much softer in an instant. Humph, if you really want to get close to me. This emperor, can still do it reluctantly. Although she had tried her best to keep her cold expression and take the initiative to say such words as Tai Tai, Chu Qingyu still felt shy. After talking about it, his voice became quieter and quieter, and his eyes dodged to the side, not daring to look directly at Nai Chen at all. In order to cover up the shame and nervousness in his heart, he even forced. Snort. 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 He hummed 3 times in succession. Looking at the little head that was slightly raised but not even as high as his own waist, Nai Chen was completely amused. It seemed that Chu Qingyu had understood what he had just thought. However, this way of expressing gratitude is really too Empress Qingyu. This feeling of gratitude in the heart, but arrogance on the surface, I'm afraid I won't be able to find another one in the world. Then I'll come. Naturally, there was no reason to refuse. Nai Chen leaned down and approached slowly. Approaching slowly from a high place, Chu Qingyu's current form is indeed very beautiful. The delicate face has extremely straight features, a high nose bridge, and big watery eyes, as delicate as a doll. Her hair hangs softly down her back. Even though her current form should be that of the Empress when she was very young, she has completely revealed her beauty. Just one glance is enough to see how beautiful the future will be. You really want to, Tai Tai. Especially after Chu Qingyu said that, she felt a little regretful. The hesitation of not wanting to refuse, but being shy and intolerable, makes people laugh even more. Nai Chen no longer hesitated, and his forehead slowly overlapped with that small forehead. Sure enough, even though it was small, Chu Qingyu's head still had a refreshing coolness. The soft and cool feeling close to the skin makes people feel extremely comfortable. And when she was next to Nai Chen, Chu Qingyu's little face instantly became like a red apple. It's white and tender with a hint of pink, but it's shy but can't bear to resist. Okay, it's been posted for so long. After a while, Chu Qingyu said quietly. But there was no hint of resistance in his voice. Nai Chen felt a wave of warmth on her forehead, which made her feel extremely safe. This slightly embarrassing touch was exactly what Chu Qingyu had sought from Yu Jian. But at this moment, the feeling conveyed by Nai Chen was completely different. It was an indescribable feeling. When she had the strength, she was willing to calm down and enjoy the tranquility. When she was weak, she was willing to snuggle in the warmth and enjoy the big umbrella that seemed to block everything. Some of the same, but completely different. That sense of security, even seemed to make her feel safer than what Yu Jian had brought her, and she couldn't help but immerse herself in it. Chu Qingyu's eyes flickered slightly, as if with a little tenderness. A sweet smile of relief and satisfaction appeared at the corner of her mouth. But at this moment, she suddenly felt her head flicked lightly. Ouch! Chu Qingyu raised her head quickly, but just happened to see Nai Chen's slightly smug smile. Why did you hit me? Nothing, I just saw that you are so cute now, my wife, and I couldn't help but want to bully you once. In Lanchuan continent, when the 4-character name of Empress Qingyu is mentioned, there are few people who are not afraid. But at this moment, this sudden brain explosion made Chu Qingyu a little dazed. There seemed to be tears in her bright eyes. Nai Chen. Damn it! The petite body chased Nai Chen, who was about to escape. The coquettish voice echoed, and 2 figures were one in front and one behind. The scene was a little sweet. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 358. At this moment, the war that has been going on for a long time is coming to an end. Many of the panting Yin soldiers who stayed in place looked around and noticed this extremely sweet scene, and some looked at each other in disbelief. After all, they haven't forgotten it at all until now. When Chu Qingyu first reached the sky, her cold eyes swept below, exuding a sense of cold pride. That unprecedented sense of oppression cannot be exuded even by ordinary powerful emperors. In just a moment, all the Yin soldiers were in awe and dared not look directly at him. But now, is this still a person? For a moment, many Yin soldiers didn't know what to say at all. At this time, looking at the playful look of Chu Qingyu chasing after Nai Chen, who was filled with shame and anger, Yu Jian couldn't help but burst into laughter. Moreover, he couldn't help but smile more and more, and couldn't help but murmured. I didn't expect that after so many years, Qingyu is still the same. Chu Qingyu, who couldn't catch up with Nai Chen, realized that there were some strange looks around her, and suddenly noticed Yu Jian who was looking at her with a smile. Those seemingly ordinary words soon floated into her ears, and quickly caused huge waves. Recalling her childish behavior in chasing Nai Chen just now, Chu Qingyu's face became even redder and she stood there stupidly. It's over, it's such a shame. Even Sister Ming feels that she has not grown up at all over the years. Doesn't Sister Ming want to dislike herself? Chu Qingyu's eyes suddenly went straight, and she didn't know what to do next. Nai Chen's method of making herself smaller did eliminate the gap between her and Sister Ming, but she never expected that she would let the situation evolve into this if she didn't pay attention. It's over. Not only is my image completely ruined, it must also have plummeted in Sister Ming's heart. Chu Qingyu jumped up on her little feet anxiously, trying hard to think of a way to save her. But he desperately realized that there was no excuse to make up for the immature actions he had just committed. Not only on the surface, no matter from which angle you look at it, they look exactly like an immature child. But just when Chu Qingyu was anxious and a little panicked, Yu Jian slowly floated down next to her. Leaning down, his voice was full of tenderness. "Qingyu, is he your boyfriend?" Following Yu Jian's gaze, Chu Qingyu saw Nai Chen's figure. Although he flicked his own head just now, which was quite cynical. But at this moment, Nai Chen stood there calmly, looking majestic and dignified. Every move reveals an extraordinary and unrestrained feeling. What's more important is that the teasing gaze just now is now filled with such a smile that one can't help but feel immersed in it. Recalling the true purpose of what Nai Chen had done before, Chu Qingyu's eyes froze slightly for a moment. At the same time, she also felt the tenderness and relief in Yu Qin's eyes. Obviously, she never had any dislike for her immature performance just now. On the contrary, he seems to be quite interested in Nai Chen. Indeed, hundreds of years have passed. At this moment, Chu Qingyu seemed to suddenly feel the changes in the world. It had been a long time since she had seen this side of her. Raising her head again, Chu Qingyu's expression reappeared with a hint of confidence. He couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth slightly, and then nodded seriously. "Yes, she is my current, Taoist companion." Although there was still a hint of shyness in her voice, Chu Qingyu smiled slightly and felt relieved. "Oh? That's it? I never thought that you would become Qingyu's Taoist companion." It was slightly different from what she thought. After hearing this answer, Yu Jian couldn't help laughing, and her eyes looking at Nai Chen were full of curiosity and joy. "I saw Qingyu's look just now, and she seemed a little embarrassed to say it, but with the relationship between you, if you are not a Taoist couple, I will never believe it. Moreover, he is definitely a super loving Taoist couple." Yu Jian nodded confidently, but soon, her eyes seemed to burst with light, and she stepped forward with a rather gossipy excitement. "However, I am a little curious about how you became Taoist companions. After so many years, Qingyu seems to be no longer as naughty as she was when she was a child. I see that she has just arrived here, and her grown-up form seems to be quite cold and arrogant, and has undergone considerable changes. Is it you who is chasing her or she who is chasing you? How did you catch her? Please tell me in detail. In exchange, can I tell you some secrets from Qingyu's childhood? Even, including the embarrassing incident of bedwetting." Yu Jian approached Nai Chen's ear mysteriously and curiously, wanting to exchange information that would satisfy both parties. "Not bad. Although it was the first time to meet the Nether Princess, whom the Empress had longed for a long time. This suggestion instantly raised Nai-Chen's favorability towards Yu Jian to the full value. Unexpectedly, this Nether Princess was actually on the same road as him. If we are like-minded, it will be much easier. I agree, but Princess, you must not break your promise. Don't worry, I will definitely do what I say, and it's not just about bedwetting. I have more things about King Yu's childhood embarrassments that no one will know. Make a deal. They hit it off immediately, and Nai-Chen clapped their hands with Yu Jian in a tacit understanding. The Empress wet the bed as a child, and even more exciting stories. These secrets can simply become the Empress's greatest leverage. Nai-Chen couldn't wait to hear Yu Jian's story and immediately took the lead in showing his sincerity. In that case, I will tell you how to catch the Empress. This story starts with a love letter. You two, stop talking. Hearing the conversation between the two, Chu Qingyu on the side was completely panicked. She originally thought that Yu Jian might not like Nai-Chen when they met for the first time. But they never expected that in just a split second, they would completely unite their front. Even, exchange stories about bedwetting when they were children. Hateful. Chu Qingyu stood between the two of them aggrievedly, using her body as a barrier, trying to stop this terrifying large-scale exchange of information. However, although they barely blocked the conversation, Nai-Chen and Yu Jian's laughter came from both sides at the same time. Although there was only laughter, it hurt people even more. At this moment, Chu Qingyu suddenly felt that her majesty as a great emperor was lost. Bullying a child who is only 600 years old is too much. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 359. Seeing Chu Qingyu's pitiful appearance about to cry, Yu Jian and Nai-Chen smiled at the same time and then stopped talking. After all, who could have imagined that the dignified Empress Qingyu would be bullied into such a pitiable state? Especially the petite body trembling slightly, leaning next to Nai-Chen, and the big watery eyes turned slightly red under the stain of tears, which was extremely pitiful. For those who don't know, you might think that Nai-Chen did something outrageous. This scene is indeed slightly criminal. Yu Jian couldn't help but look at Nai-Chen. The blue crown was gently raised with her head, and there was still a smile on her cheeks. The appearance of a young girl who is about 16 or 17 years old cannot be said to be very gorgeous, but she can definitely be described as elegant and beautiful. It was obvious that Yu Jian had a very good impression of Nai-Chen even though they had only known each other for a short time. In his eyes, there was a sense of emotion as he watched his sister grow up and get married. No matter from every aspect, especially the coincidental topics just now, Yu Jian was very satisfied with Nai-Chen. But, looking at the battlefield around her, Yu Jian could not help but feel a hint of seriousness in her expression. Although the big sword just reversed the situation, the Netherworld dynasty turned around and almost ended the battle and won the victory. But on the huge battlefield, the battle that lasted for a full month was enough to be described as tragic. I don't know how many Yin soldiers lost their souls, and even the earth turned a chilling blood red due to the blood infection. The humiliation and tragedy of this battle have never happened before in the entire history of the Netherworld dynasty. Why did you suddenly come to the underworld? Logically speaking, it shouldn't be as simple as coming here for a date, right? Yu Jian looked at Nai-Chen solemnly. She could feel that the changes that occurred in the underworld might be related to the reason why the two came to the underworld. Yes, there are indeed other reasons why we came to the underworld. Nai-Chen also nodded seriously and gently pressed the little head of Chu Qingyu who was playing with the hem of his clothes at the moment. Even though the Empress is normally aloof, after she became smaller, she became as naughty as the kid next door who needs to be spanked. The reason why we came to the underworld is mainly to find the people from the Chaos Emperor's tomb. After he couldn't help but smile, Nai Chen gradually became serious and told Yu Jian the general story of what happened. The most important thing among them is naturally the changes within the Imperial Mausoleum. The Imperial Mausoleum has been so seriously affected. Hearing what Nai Chen said, Yu Jian couldn't help but be startled. Even though she was in the underworld when she was born, she only appeared in Lanchuan continent to accompany Chu Qingyu for a short period of time. But from the mouths of many ghosts, she also knew the meaning of the imperial tombs where countless great emperors were buried. If she wants to control so many powerful corpses, even Men Niang, who can erase people's memories in the underworld, may not be able to do it. Who else in the underworld could do such a thing? More importantly, the purpose of attacking the underworld and Lanchuan continent at the same time is to destroy both worlds. What is the other party's intention in setting up this situation? Underworld, who else can be in the underworld? Yukin held the crown on her head and thought hard, but she couldn't think of anything at all. At this moment, a Yin soldier leader on the side came forward to report the situation. His voice was slightly low. Princess, in this battle, the dynasty's Yin soldiers lost more than 200,000 people, and a large number of buildings were damaged. The Nahi Bridge was extensively damaged, and the Gaiman Pass was also damaged to a certain extent. Fortunately, these impacts are still within control and will not affect the path to the afterlife. The only problem is, Men Niang is missing. Men Niang is missing. The last sentence made Yukin feel a little surprised. Men Niang's name is Menkaiyu, and she is in charge of the soul-conscious soup that needs to be drunk before rebirth. It is said that she was a powerful emperor during her lifetime. After so many years in the underworld, her qualifications and age can even be regarded as the highest generation. Therefore, even Yu Jian, who is now in charge of the Netherworld dynasty, does not dare to underestimate her identity. However, the situation in the underworld is complicated now, and Men Niang's own strength is not weak, so there is no time to pay attention to her traces for the time being. Looking at the scenes left behind after the battle around her, Yukin's eyes changed slightly and gradually became firmer. She looked at Nai Chen. Are you saying that the person who caused chaos in Lanchuan continent and the underworld at the same time might be hiding in the underworld now? Yes, that's why the Empress and I came here. Nai Chen nodded. Hearing these words, Yukin seemed to firm up quickly. I understand, I might be able to find her, come with me. After saying that, she tapped the ground lightly with her toes, and her spiritual body floated into the air without hesitation. Princess is going to. Looking at the direction Yu Jian was facing, several important officials of the Netherworld dynasty were suddenly stunned, and then their expressions showed signs of astonishment. Maybe the princess wants to go there. There may indeed be a solution there, but it should not be used lightly unless absolutely necessary. Several Yin officials all expressed their astonishment without any hesitation. But at this moment, he ignored them completely, and Yu Jian's figure was already flying towards the depths of the Netherworld dynasty. It seems like she really has a solution. Early before coming to the Netherworld dynasty, Nai Chen had heard that the Hades of the dynasty had the means to control the entire underworld, and the situation seemed to be true. Let's go, my wife. Nai Chen lowered his head and looked at Chu Qingyu, who was still pulling at the corner of his clothes. Her body became so petite and lovely. It was obvious that even if Chu Qingyu wanted to act cool, she couldn't do it at all. Chu Qingyu jumped up and down, becoming more anxious. She had been in the form of a child for a while, and her spiritual power had been completely consumed. Now, let alone using magic, she couldn't even fly in the air. Hurry up and return the snow lotus to this emperor, otherwise I can't even fly. Chu Qingyu stared at Nai Chen pitifully. The look of tears in the corner of her eyes made Nai Chen laugh at once. But he quickly smiled and shook his head to refuse. Wife, you wanted to bite me just now. As a punishment, I will give you the snow lotus later. But this emperor can't fly, How can I follow? Chu Qingyu was so anxious that she seemed to jump up, and her little face was full of pity. After all, after coming to the underworld, she became a little girl and went to the Holy See to fight. She was bullied a lot along the way. Don't worry, wife, I have a way to do this. Nai Chen smiled slightly, but bent down. One hand gently dragged Chu Qingyu's neck, and the other hand gently lifted her leg. A princess hug, he picked up this petite and delicate body. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 360. Chu Qingyu panicked instantly as her petite body was picked up. She never expected that Nai Chen would suddenly pick her up, and in such a shameful posture. If I remember correctly, this way of hugging seems to be called princess hug. It is a way for the man to show his arm strength, and it is also a way to fully reveal the softness of the woman's body and soft temperament. In my memory, it seems that those disciples who were secretly in love often made such cool moves when they were in love. Being held in Nai Chen's arms, his petite body fit the curvature of his arms. Nai Chen's body covered him like a tree's shade, firmly protecting him in his arms. That feeling is extremely reassuring. Being held in his arms, with his arms gently supporting his body, and the breeze blowing, he felt even more comfortable. For a moment, Chu Qingyu's eyes were stagnant. I have to admit that this kind of hugging position is indeed very comfortable. No wonder those female disciples would rather risk to be held like this. But the problem is, suddenly recalling that it was not only Yu Jian, but also many Yin soldiers around her who were watching at this moment, Chu Qingyu instantly felt ashamed. After all, when had I ever been hugged like this by others? Even if it's really comfortable, it's definitely not okay. First, let me go first. If it doesn't work, I can just change my posture. Chu Qingyu's voice was small and she whispered shyly into Nai Chen's ear. Unfortunately, Nai Chen answered very decisively. It's okay, honey, I'm not tired. Chu Qingyu was completely dumbfounded. This is not a question of whether you are tired or not. But as a dignified empress, she lost all face. But she was totally embarrassed to say this kind of thing. Chu Qingyu thought about it and had to change her way. Forget it, I know this posture is called the princess hug, but isn't the princess hug supposed to be used to hug princesses? I am an empress who is feared and respected by others, so my status is completely inappropriate. So, let's forget it. After saying this, Chu Qingyu felt that what she said was justified and impeccable. This way, I should be able to change my posture. Chu Qingyu raised her head and happened to look at Nai Chen. But she soon noticed that Nai Chen's eyes had changed slightly. The look in his eyes when he looked at him seemed to be that deep yet cool and handsome feeling when he read love letters to himself in the past. Chu Qingyu was a little stunned. After all, she couldn't figure it out. How could she read a love letter in a place like this? It's impossible, it can't be, it should be, just an illusion. However, in Chu Qingyu's innocent eyes with disbelief, she saw Nai Chen approaching slowly with a smile on his lips. Moreover, there is some intoxicating magnetism in the voice. Honey, are you kidding me? In my heart, you are the cutest and most adorable princess. This holding method is only suitable for you. This sentence is not really a love letter, it is even so short that it was finished in just a blink of an eye. But for some reason, it echoed in Chu Qingyu's ears like a magical sound. Wrong. This must be just a casual joke on his part, teasing me. After all, he has made this kind of joke more than once. Well, that must be it. Chu Qingyu hinted to herself several times in her heart, and even nodded seriously to make sure. It seems that he has completely forgotten what Nai Chen just said. It goes in with the left ear and comes out with the right ear. But when he raised his head, he looked at Nai Chen inadvertently. When their eyes met, she suddenly felt as if an electric current surged through her heart. It was numb, but it made my mood completely confused. Even though he knew that Nai Chen's words might have been meant for him to make him happy as a joke. It may even be a joke meant to tease oneself. But that fiery gaze, that serious look. For a moment, Chu Qingyu couldn't tell whether Nai Chen was acting or not. Just be very clear. This lethality is really too strong. I am afraid that any beautiful girl would be completely unable to resist this sudden, disgusting love words that seem to come from the heart. It's so numb that it makes your toes curl slightly, and you want to lie down on the ground and roll around. But every word of the sentence seems to pierce into the heart, and every word makes the heartstrings confused and at a loss. In just a moment, Chu Qingyu, who had originally erected a line of defense in her heart, felt as if these lines of defense had completely collapsed in a second. All that was left was the sound of his own heartbeat, which was getting faster and faster. The silent sky, the gentle breeze, and the only thing left seems to be my own heartbeat. It's getting faster and faster like a little rabbit, without any rules. My heart is completely messed up. You, don't think that this emperor will take you seriously if you say such big words. Humph, if you want to tease me with such sweet words, it's still early for you. Chu Qingyu still tried her best to pretend not to care, but her slightly trembling voice and her blushing face were completely contrary to what she said. Honey, are you sure? Nai Chen, who had already understood, whispered in her ear. Of course I am sure. Thinking that Nai Chen had finally changed his mind, Chu Qingyu quickly replied with a slight tremor. It's no use for you to be sure. Today I will hug you like a princess. However, Nai Chen's words completely broke her expectations. Not only did he not let go, but he hugged her tighter. Nai Chen, damn it. Chu Qingyu's voice dissipated with the wind, without causing any waves at all. She soon realized that she could not break free from Nai Chen's embrace. A slightly cold wind blew through the underworld, making her body shiver a little. But nestled in Nai Chen's arms, no matter how cold the wind was, it seemed to be offset in an instant. The embrace was warm, like a warm bed that could shield from all wind and rain. More importantly, the sense of security that came with the wrapping seemed to block all dangers. In an instant, Chu Qingyu's resistance stopped completely. The barren chest touched Nai Chen's arm lightly, and the heart beat faster and faster, making both of them very clear how fast its frequency had become. Even if he felt his own heartbeat, Nai Chen probably already knew what he was thinking now. When Chu Qingyu thought of this, her cheeks instantly felt a little red. Looking at Nai Chen, her watery eyes seemed to be surging. Finally, Chu Qingyu snorted lightly and raised her head playfully. Humph, since you want to hug me, then, it's up to you. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 361. While being arrogant, she can also be a bit aloof. The most important thing is that the arrogance that Chu Qingyu shows now as a little girl is even more playful and cute to the point of making people laugh. Nai Chen couldn't help but want to bully Chu Qingyu. But he realized that now that he was holding her, he couldn't free his hands to flick her brain. After thinking for a moment, Nai Chen quickly came up with a good idea. He leaned forward and gently bumped Chu Qingyu's soft little head with his forehead. Chu Qingyu was stunned for a moment and felt dizzy. You actually bumped into me. With her body like this being bullied one after another, Chu Qingyu had somewhat forgotten her majesty as an empress, and covered her head pitifully. Hee, it's a rare opportunity, so of course I have to bully my wife. Using the skill of flying in the air, Nai Chen bumped slightly again. It hurts, damn it, I will run away now. Chu Qingyu turned around and wanted to escape from Nai Chen, but just when she looked down, she suddenly felt her heart tremble, as if her soul almost floated out. Okay, so high. Chu Qingyu then recalled that when she was this age, she had not learned how to ride the wind at all. In such a high place, she would naturally be afraid of heights. But now, the body has become the size it was then, and the state of mind is naturally affected. Feeling fear in her heart, she not only did not run away at all, but instead gently snuggled closer to Nai Chen's arms. Huh? Wife, why don't you run away? This situation made Nai Chen a little confused. No. Chu Qingyu was held pitifully by the princess and shook her head. Why? Afraid of heights? A slightly trembling voice came out. Ha ha ha. After a long moment of silence, Nai Chen burst out laughing. I was originally thinking about why Chu Qingyu suddenly became more honest, but I never expected that it would be such a reason. Don't laugh. Chu Qingyu's shy and angry voice came. How can you not laugh at something as shocking as the Empress' fear of heights? Hateful. Ha ha ha. Nai Chen. Wait, no. Unbridled laughter echoed in the air. Not only that, the Yin soldiers looking at the sky clearly noticed it. After flying to a higher altitude, Nai Chen actually gently threw the Princess Chu Qingyu up and then caught her. The little girl, who originally seemed to be quite aloof and unapproachable, was clearly frightened and screamed, angry and embarrassed. The sounds of bickering came from afar from time to time, but for some reason, these Yin soldiers standing there stupidly suddenly felt something. Why does the bickering between these two people seem to be even more sweet than before? Looking at each other, even Yin Bing, who had experienced love, was completely stunned by this scene, feeling that his brain was completely exhausted. I just clearly felt that the originally gloomy sky seemed to be sprinkled with a bit of sweetness by the dog food. Following Yu Jian's figure, Nai Chen carried Chu Qingyu all the way to the depths of the Netherworld dynasty. And after passing through layers of tightly guarded checkpoints, we reached the deepest part of the Imperial Mausoleum. There stand 12 towering square pillars of rock. On each pillar is carved a majestic and terrifying statue of the devil. The whole body of the pillar is engraved with various mysterious lines, and extremely pure underworld energy flows. There is a circular standing place on the altar in the center, and directly above that, a group of extremely pure aura condenses. It seemed to be dark energy and spiritual energy. The various auras were extremely complex, causing the surrounding space to distort. Dark blue light shrouded its surface, as if there was an extremely huge aura hovering under this calm surface. This is the depths of the Netherworld dynasty, and the demon gods carved on the 12 pillars around it are the 12 most powerful demon gods in the underworld. It is enough to see that there is an extremely mysterious secret hidden here. And the auras shrouded under the dark blue light seem to be vaguely connected to the entire underworld. After Yu Jian glanced in the direction of Nai Chen and Chu Qingyu, she turned around again and headed towards the altar in the center. And as she entered the altar, the atmosphere of the entire altar seemed to change suddenly. Solemn, even with a sense of awe and admiration. There were obviously no ghosts or creatures in the altar, but it seemed to be surrendering to Yu Jian. And the invisible dark energy hovering in the altar seemed to be being pulled, rushing towards the dark blue energy bead in the center and Yu Jian's figure. No wonder the ghosts in Luji City say that the Netherworld dynasty controls the entire underworld. It seems that this altar alone is inextricably linked to the underworld. Nai Chen could feel the gathering cold aura. Even Chu Qingyu was standing next to Nai Chen, her little hand gently hooked his little finger, with a hint of seriousness in her expression. Even though she had never seen such a scene, she felt vaguely that Yukin's figure at this moment seemed to affect the entire underworld. What exactly is Sister Ming going to do? Chu Qingyu couldn't help but frown slightly, feeling that the situation seemed a bit unexpected. At this moment, Yu Jian, who had walked into the altar, suddenly stretched out her hand and reached for the dark blue gas bead in the center. When it touched the bead, a dazzling dark blue light instantly burst out from it. Under its attraction, Yuqian's aura also rose sharply, and the light on the crown became extremely bright. At this moment, the entire altar seemed to come alive. The eyes of the demon god carved on the stone pillar also reflected light under the reflection, and it actually made a low roar like the roar of a beast. The aura began to emerge from those mysterious patterns. The patterns on the ground, the altar, and the stone pillars. One after another, dark blue dark air rose and slowly flowed towards the center. Although each of these dark air was only a few strands, when they gathered together, they became extremely majestic. The surging aura was extremely pure, and the power contained was terrifying and mysterious. Moreover, all of them gathered towards Yuqian's body and slowly merged into her body. Each ray of underworld energy seemed to be able to raise her breath by a whole point. But as the underworld poured in, Yuqian's spirit body was also trembling slightly, as if in some pain. Sister Ming. A trace of worry appeared on Chu Qingyu's delicate face, and she had already thought of stopping this strange situation from continuing. But at this moment, her soul trembled, and Yuqian, who was obviously in great pain, endured the pain and looked up at the dark blue pillar. All the lives in the underworld are under my control. The eye of the underworld, open. Suddenly, the underworld energy surged in all directions.